Hello guys and welcome to my new video. I promise you this is the last my main video in this series, at least for this expansion, because I finally made up my choice. I'm going to be playing Restoration Druid when it comes to Mythic raiding, and I'm still sticking to Resto Shaman when it comes to Mythic Plus progression because it's just so hard to give up. But in this video I wanted to kind of talk about the reasoning why I decided to play Resto Druid in raids. Is it fun? What is the play style? What are the advantages, disadvantages? Is it viable? Is it optimal? All of those things, because I know there's a lot of people who are still deciding on which character to main, maybe to create an alt. And I hope that with this video I might provide some insight into what it is like to heal as Restoration Druid. So let's go and get started with Restoration Druid. So why did I go away from Restoration Shaman? If you've been following a lot of the videos that I've been making in terms of my main choice, you'll notice that our raid roster consisted of 3 Restoration Shamans, which again, if you look at the new Mythic raid, Restoration Shaman is somewhat off meta right now, and having 3 really does not make any sense. So I spent the last week, 2 weeks, trialing out different healers: Restoration Druid, Holy Priest, Mystery Ramon. I was doing a bunch of Pug raids, Guild raids, normal, heroics. I really wanted to figure out which healer in the long run in terms of Mythic raid progression would give me the most joy and would be, again, viable, fun, and things like that. And honestly, the decision was really hard. I really did try to give Holy Priest another try because I wanted to main a priest, because I haven't mained a priest in a long time, but Flash Concentration build, it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it in the long run. It didn't feel that great. Holy Priest is more than capable of healer, but it just wasn't for me, so I went back to my old roots with Restoration Druid. And honestly, I had no regrets whatsoever. I've been playing Resto Druid for a little bit, and you can see here are the charts of the Mythic rating, HPS healer performance. Again, HPS is not a defining factor of what makes healers good or bad, but right now, Resto Druid is borderline pumping. So what's happening right now? You have the double legendaries, you have the 4-set bonuses. If you watched my PTR videos, it's something that I kind of predicted. I wanted to tell people, because Resto Druid double legendaries synergize so well. The fact that, again, you want haste, you want mastery, the 2-set works with mastery, and all of those things have created what you see right now. Resto Druid being an insanely good healer in terms of pure HPS and what they can provide. The fact that you have 2-minute ramps if you want with Inner Peace. The fact that Convoke provides you with an insane 1-minute ramp that can be added or combined with your 4-set bonus. There is so much flexibility that Resto Druid provides, and it just feels really fun. And we'll talk about the gameplay, we'll talk about what makes it fun, but the charts here just showcase how good Resto Druid is. But Mistweaver is no slouch either. Mistweaver is one of those healers that also benefited a lot from double legendaries, benefited a lot from the 4-set bonus. Mistweaver can provide huge amount of HPS on top of the fact that it can provide passive damage. So Mistweaver is really good, and you saw this in Echo World first skill of Jailer. Huge amount of HPS, good amount of passive damage, and Holy Priest is the most popular race to world first healer. When I'm talking about each healer and they almost all sound overpowered, that's also an indication of good class balance. So you have to consider that. But let's go to Resto Druid in terms of what makes it more fun, especially in raid content. So this is my Restoration Druid right now, and again, we're talking about raid, and there's only one covenant in this, and that is going to be Night Fae. I honestly don't think I would have the same amount of fun as Restoration Druid in raid if I was not playing Night Fae. Night Fae Convoke the Spirits, 1-minute Convoke with Night Fae specific legendary, is a really fun addition to the spec or class as a whole. Honestly, it's really fun, and I'm running Dreamweaver right now. The fact that you have Pot Tender, just because if you mess up, the fact that you have Empowered Chrysalis, which gives you a lot of, a lot of your overhealing turns into shields, which is great for a lot of the fights, but Field of Blossoms is just absolutely insane. So not only you have Convoke, which is a great 1-minute offensive, or how do I say it, HPS cooldown, it also provides a Field of Blossoms, which gives you a bunch of haste, and you can use that to empower your, I don't know, Tranquility, your Rejuvenations, all of your HOTS. And all of a sudden you have a reason to stay into this, which is going to buff your healing by a considerable amount. And it also adds a little bit complexity in terms of trying to make sure to use Convoke not outside of the raid, where no one's going to see you, and then all of a sudden you have to move away from it. You want to try and be strategic about these kind of things. Resto Druid might feel like one of those healers where you're just pressing Rejuve, and there are going to be certain fights where you will be pressing Rejuvenation all the time. And honestly, with a double legendary combo, which is honestly one of the best combos that I've seen so far in terms of double Lego healer synchronization type of deals happening. Your Unity is going to be, of course, your Convoke Legendary, which is going to make it 1 minute. This also has a chance of giving you Flourish, really, really good, whatever. And then you're going to have Vision of Unending Growth. Now, Rejuvenation Healing has a chance to create a new Rejuvenation. So that sounds pretty cool. The more Rejuvenations I have, you know, Haste is a really, really nice stat. Haste Mastery, honestly, probably your 2 best stats in Raid right now. So the more Haste you have, the more Rejuvenations you can output. You're outputting Rejuvenations, there's a high chance of proccing your Vision of Ending Growth, getting a Rejuvenation out of there. Then the more Rejuvenations you have, the more HOTS you're gonna get from your 2-set bonus, which again, I only have the 2-set bonus, I don't have a 4-set bonus yet, but you're gonna get more HOTS from your 2-set bonus because they proc from Rejuvenation. The 2-set bonus works with Mastery, and all of a sudden you have this kind of like a chaining of abilities from your double legendaries to your tier sets, to the fact that your stat priority is something like Haste Mastery. And now you have this ball of HPS, this pumper HPS healer that a lot of the times you might be doing a raid, and this happened to me all the time when I'm doing Mythic raiding right now, where everybody in the raid are going to have Rejuvenation on them. But it's not only the synergy, we have to talk about the gameplay, we have to talk about the different ways of providing a burst healing. You have to have a raid which allows for Resto Druid to pop off, and honestly Sepulture is one of those raids which really favor Resto Druid healing. So first of all, there's a lot of rot type of damage. There's not a lot of, like if you look at previous tiers, they used to be like, okay, in the next 5 seconds it's going to be a huge explosion, everyone's gonna go 10% HP, and then nothing happens. You just need to heal them up. That kind of promoted the burst healing. And Resto Druid can do burst healing, but not as good as a lot of other classes, unless you type in like Flourish, because Flourish can be really nice. But generally speaking, the new raid has a lot of prolonged rot type of damage patterns, which also work insanely well with the fact that Resto Druid is so versatile by picking Inner Peace. If you pick Inner Peace, you're gonna have 2-minute Tranquility. And there's about a decent amount of boss fights right now where 2-minute Tranquility is insane. Artificer to some extent. The Sausage is an absolute prime example where 2-minute Trank is going to be insane, because the Sausage is relatively, nothing's really happening except for those 2-minute marks where everyone's taking a huge amount of damage. So it's a prime example where Inner Peace is really, really good. Prototype pattern is not really there. Lehuvum in Mythic to some extent can be argued for Inner Peace. Holongus to some extent can be argued for Inner Peace, but that's mainly because the fact that your Spring Blossoms is not going to get a lot of value because everyone's spread. And that goes for basically every healer that has stacked abilities. On Holongus, you're probably stepping away from that. So you have Holongus, Lord of Dread is a prime example. Regalian, you can almost make a 2-minute Trank work. You know what I've done in the past? I've actually had Holy Priest use their Night Fae cooldown reduction on me, so my 2-minute Trank would become a little bit lower, and it could actually squeeze in those Tranks when you go down in Regalian Heroic version. But that's beside the point. You can make a lot of these things work. So all of a sudden you have a healer who has a lot of different burst healing potentials in terms of healing cooldown assignments. If you're a raid officer, you can have a really nice time with Restoration Druid, because you can ask them to have a 2-minute Trank. If they don't have a 2-minute Trank, they'll have more passive healing, because Spring Blossoms is going to give you HOTS and it's going to work with Mastery. So there is a lot of nice things to say about Resto Druid. If there is a time to play Resto Druid, especially in raid situations, this is the time. This is honestly the time. If you enjoyed Resto Druid, if you like this hot heal over time type of gameplay, because again, a lot of your healing is coming from healing over time. You have a lot of different HOTS that you can place on members. Things like, you know, Efflorescence, Spring Blossoms, they all stack up. Your 2-set bonus that works from your Rejuvenation stacks up. And then you have these burst windows with your Convokes, with your Tranquility. Again, you're using Tree of Life if you don't have the 4-set bonus. But once you have the 4-set bonus, you can dabble into Soul of the Forest. Again, super exciting. All of a sudden, you're pretty much consistently changing your talents based on an encounter and based on whether you have a 4-set or not. And I think that's only a good thing, because it creates variance, it creates interest in the class. And again, I don't have the 4-set bonus, so I end up playing Tree of Life more often than I want to. But another tip, before I ramble on too much about raids, I want to talk about Mythic Plus a bit. But if you're playing Convoke right now, I think it's relatively important to know the tips and tricks about Nature Swiftness. You can activate Nature Swiftness right now, and I have this macro here. You can activate Nature Swiftness and not use it, and then activate Convoke, and the regrowths that are going to be cast from the Convoke are going to be affected by Nature Swiftness without actually consuming Nature Swiftness. So it's going to look something like this. My Nature Swiftness activated, my Convoke is running, and the regrowths that I'm getting from it, they're empowered. And then I can activate my Nature Swiftness by casting a regrowth afterwards. This kind of combo is going to make your Convokes a little bit stronger. It's not absolutely massive, but it can add up throughout the boss fight, 6-7 minute boss fight where you're getting a bunch of Convokes, additional regrowth healing will add up. Something to try and experiment. This is the macro that I'm using, and it seems to be working pretty well. I will link it in the description if you want to. And again, I did talk about stats, and in terms of where I'm crafting my legendaries, just very quickly, I have crafted Vision of Ending Growth on my feet. I put Haste Master because those are the two best stats in Raid. I have crafted Unity, which has crit and haste on it, because I'm gonna use this for Mythic Plus, and I don't want Mastery in Mythic Plus, because I can tell you right now that Resto Druid has so much healing output that all of the top Resto Druids who are doing high-end Mythic Plus content are going to go for DPS trinkets, they're gonna go for pure DPS legendaries, and they're gonna stay away from Mastery because Resto Druid has too much HPS to some extent. So this is my kind of legendary crafting. I am planning of placing Vision of Ending Growth on a helm piece once I get a 5 set and I can move around my different sets, because you're going to get a guaranteed gem socket, high stats and things like that. And this is my plan. But let's go and move on to Mythic Plus in terms of, is Resto Druid fun in Mythic Plus? Now in terms of Restoration Druid in Mythic Plus, and you already see a lot of the jumping around here, and that is the Adaptive Swarm. I am running Necrolord, Resto Druid. This is the build that I'm running right now for Mythic Plus. You don't have to be Necrolord, you can actually make here and work really well, especially if you're in an organized group. And if you're just looking to get like 15 keys done and you don't really want to optimize your damage in such a way, you can still stay Night Fae. It's not that big of a deal to just stay Night Fae, but I decided to go Necro because it is a really fun playstyle, and visually, like, I mean, it's kind of insane. You're just kind of bouncing around Adaptive Swarm. It increases your hots on allies, increases your dots, bleeds on enemies and things like that. And it is interesting, it is fun. And in terms of what a legendary, that again, I didn't swap my gear, but for Mythic Plus, I also use Draft of Defocus, and it provides me with priority damage. I think there's a lot of other, I'm secretly suspecting there's going to be other builds emerging for Resto Druids in Mythic Plus, because it's not that clear cut as it is in Raids. In Raids, you go Night Fae. Night Fae is the way to go. You have your Convoke legendary, you have your Vision of Ending Growth and things like that, and those work really well. In Mythic Plus, I think there's going to be different, weird, and exciting builds emerging, which, again, is something to be happy about. But Resto Druid in Mythic Plus, again, if you're running Necrolord, you're going to be running Feral Affinity. Feral Affinity is something that I really enjoyed, applying bleeds, applying dots, applying your Adaptive Swarm. It just feels really natural, and then going back into healing. It feels really nice. I really enjoyed Kitty Form. I really enjoyed the fact that, the Legion Resto Druid. I think we're getting some of that back right now, and I think that's only a good thing. Some people might really not like the fact that you're almost melee, even though you're not melee, but you're almost melee because of Feral Affinity. I personally really like it. Do I think Resto Druid is better than a Resto Shaman? Probably not. This is why I'm still keeping my Resto Shaman alive in Mythic Plus pushing, because my group wants to play with Resto Shaman, because, interrupts, AoE stuns, really strong damage if you allow Earth Elemental to live long enough. But Resto Druid is still another healer that can provide you with a lot of fun, especially if you like that Feral Affinity, especially if you like this bleeds, dots, hots. And then all of a sudden you have another hot, Adaptive Swarm, that acts as a bleed and acts as a hot at the same time. It's almost like it's not decided on what he wants to do, so it just does everything at the same time. It feels really fun, and I said, like, visually pleasing. And Resto Druid, in my opinion, is a very good spot. I think it's in a better spot in Raid than it is in Mythic Plus. I think in Raid it is absolutely crazy pumper, and if you're looking for HPS, I don't think there's any better healer than Resto Druid for HPS at this given point. In Mythic Plus, I think it's really fun, and I think it's very competitive. Do I think it's absolutely S tier of S tiers? No. But it might be S tier in terms of fun. I'll let you decide on this. And just before I'm gonna end the video, just a little tips and tricks in terms of managing Adaptive Swarm. So I'm sure for a lot of people out there, in terms of using Adaptive Swarm, you have a mouse over macro, maybe using click. So if you mouse over a friendly target and you click the associate keybind, it's gonna apply the friendly version of Adaptive Swarm. You can see the stats. But I had this kind of like a pet peeve of mine where in Mythic Plus content, I did not like having to mouse over an enemy nameplate. In this case, it's the LBUI enemy nameplate. I didn't like it. So I made this little macro here. You'll see it here in terms of adaptive swarm. And what it basically allows me to do that, if I mouse over a friendly target and I click it, it's going to apply the friendly version. But if I have an enemy selected already, and if I click anywhere on the screen, as long as it is not a friendly nameplate, it's going to apply adaptive swarm on the enemy target that is selected, or you can see it right here in terms of LVUI. And this allowed me to have a bit more of a fluid gameplay. It's not a huge deal, it made it a lot more smoother in terms of applying your offensive adaptive swarms and in terms of applying your defensive adaptive swarms. So keep that in mind. Macros and everything that I mentioned in the video are going to be in the description below. Let me know how you feel about this video. Let me know how you feel about my choice of maining Resto Druid in raids. I'm still playing Resto Shaman in Mythic Plus. Keep that in mind. I'm kind of splitting my time between them and I'm having a lot of fun. Let me know whether I made the right decision. Let me know if you're enjoying your Resto Druid, or maybe this video has kind of pushed you towards playing Resto Druid. Let me know and I'll see you in my next guide.